here's what we're doing today. This is actually one of my core ideas, something that I discovered in my own experience of homeschooling my 5 kids. I discovered something about learning for myself. Let's see if day 3's message resonates with you. Are we ready? Okay, here we go. So pull out your book. You can download the first 5 days of these essays by going to Facebook or going to my website, bravewriter.com/gsfall, and you can read along. We sell this book digitally. We also sell it through amazon.com, so you can get it either way. Okay, here we go. Day 3. Educational Renaissance. Home educators share a little-known secret. Most people assume we home educate because we distrust the school system or want to shield our children from growing up too quickly. Others think we homeschool because we are super religious types or because we are super not religious hippies. Homeschooling parents may start for any of those reasons, but home educators continue because we are getting a life-altering education at the same time. When our kids ask to go to the real school, we inwardly cringe. It's not the yellow bus we fear or the institutional classroom. Rather, we don't want our children to quit homeschooling because then we wouldn't get to read historical fiction for children or study art history the Charlotte Mason way or go on weekly nature hikes where we doodle in our journals. We wouldn't create lap books or celebrate the fall of Rome with artichokes and laurel wreaths. We wouldn't make cookies shaped like stars to go with the hot chocolate we sip while watching the Perseids meteor shower. The truth is, once you get your homeschool chugging along, it's a runaway train downhill. The enthusiasm to discover, learn, make connections, and explore takes over for everyone, but especially the home educating parent. And that's as it should be. The best homeschools are the ones where mom or dad can't put the book down. You don't have to learn the same stuff as your kids either. You can tackle all the Jane Austen novels on audiobook while making dinner. I did. Embrace it. Own it. Follow personal rabbit trails. Learn, grow, live your excitement for the Civil War or Shakespeare or astronomy or algebra right in front of your kids, right alongside them. The engine of your homeschool is fueled by your energy. It's the most delicious side effect of this enormous commitment. No one gets it on the outside looking in, but you know it on the inside. So relish your educational renaissance. You're earning it one day at a time. Cheers to you. Quote of the day. Caught me, from Don Ostgaard, who happens to be a friend of mine from when I lived in LA. Sustaining thought. Being a home educator means you not only get to educate your children, but you also have new freedom to further educate yourself. Enjoy what you discover with your children. Your enthusiasm for learning drives your homeschool, but just as importantly, relish your newly catalyzed interests. So when my kids were small, we did a unit on Native Americans, and I became fascinated with everything that took place in South Dakota. Custer, the Battle of the Bulge, all of this stuff around that conflict became really important to me. And my children were young. My oldest was maybe 7. I didn't even have all of my kids yet. They weren't even all born yet. And so we were reading these books, and we were like making Native American domiciles, places that they lived out of paper and fabric and mud. We did all these very crafty projects. I drew this elaborate map of all the regions of the Native Americans around the United States and colored it in quite beautifully. Some of you have seen it. I have shared it on Periscope in the past because I still have it because I was so proud of it. And that hung on the bulletin board in our homeschool, which was AKA our living room. We were in a little tiny condo with one room, and so it hung in the living room proudly where all people saw it. And my kids were just not that interested in the history of Native Americans. Hello? They were 7, 5, and 3, and 1. They didn't quite grasp history, but I had been a history major in college. And suddenly, with the insight you get in your 30s, I had one of those huge aha moments where I realized that all that information I had mastered for school was real. It was real. It was like time stood still, and I got it about decades and centuries. And I got it about the divisions in our nation and what had happened that we were ashamed of. In a way, I had never understood it before. And so what did I do? Well, I wanted to keep studying it. But my kids had moved on. They were ready to do like birds, They wanted to study, the bugs that were crawling around in our very tiny courtyard that was supposed to be a backyard. Like, that's what they were into. So one day, when I was just not done with this subject, and they really were, I hurried them all to bed. It was nap time. And I made sure that they were all laying down. I had them sort of strapped in with their headphones. Did you guys ever do this? I would use headphones and these little tape recorders by Fisher-Price, and I would put in music. But the headphones would sort of keep them in bed because they couldn't move. They had to listen. So I made sure everyone was asleep, resting in their room, and I ran back to the couch, and I pulled out this adult book that I had checked out at the library. And I laid there and I continued learning what I wanted to know about that period in American history. And that was the first time I realized, oh, I'm getting an education. This just isn't about my kids. This is about the family. This is about growing up and being a full-fledged adult. And how freaking lucky am I that I get to do this all day long? And I get to do it with my kids. And we're all benefiting from this educational experience. Well, of course, I was only in year 2 of homeschooling when that realization sort of dawned on me in a very personal way. I wasn't running around shouting it at homeschool support groups. It was more just like my own possession. But it became this thing. And one of the ways that it grew in my life was with other homeschooling mothers. So here's the tip I want to leave you with, in addition to just valuing your own experience of learning because it fuels the energy in your homeschool. The other thing that you can also do is build community around that. Sometimes we try really hard to build community around a style of education, like Charlotte Mason, or classical, or unschooling, or eclectic, or Brave Writer. We dive in, we embrace that theory, we gather like-minded people, and we all try to focus on how to perform that theory of education. But what happens when somebody realizes that's not quite working for them anymore? Or they've got one child who really needs to be unschooled, but another one who's thriving with classical education. Do we excommunicate that parent for not really holding to those exact principles that drew us together in the first place? Well, I hope not, because you need your friends on this journey. So one of the things that I did early on in my little world of homeschoolers, and back then in the dawning of the internet, there were only a couple places we could gather. There was one massive curriculum company that had a forum, and then there were Yahoo email groups. And what we ended up doing, those of us who met on this one massive platform, is we formed our own group to talk about what we were learning, so that we could have book discussions, talk about the latest movies, encourage each other to go see concerts of all the bands that we loved from when we were younger and wanted to go back and see them again. We talked politics, we talked religion, we talked parenting, but we focused on our own growth. My favorite part of that group is we used to share our favorite artist on a Sunday, and a lot of us didn't have favorite artists yet. So what we would do is we would do research for a week, and we would put together 4 or 5 images online in this community. And we would introduce the whole group to the artist, the painting style, and we would talk about the paintings. And this was just for us as adults. I didn't care if my kids ever looked at these paintings. It wasn't about them. It was about me. It was about my friends. It was about this community that we were building. And that energy is what has driven everything in my homeschool. Even though that wasn't the reason I created this experience for myself. I didn't go seek out these friends to talk about these adult things so that my homeschool would improve. That was just the serendipitous, happy byproduct. And I'll tell you one more thing. That group of women, I'm still friends with them. I've known them since the late 1990s, which right now sounds like ages ago. And we're done. Our kids are all grown. A lot of us made different choices as our kids learned and grew and became their own people. And today, we've bridged those ideological differences through friendship, through the power of being learners, through our own educational renaissance. So, all of this that I want to share with you comes down to one basic principle. If your excitement is catalyzed around a specific subject area in your homeschool, carve out a minute or 2 a day to just go with it, to allow yourself to indulge it, whether it's during nap time or, as I quickly discovered, right smack dab in the middle of the day while the kids are watching. When I went through my Jane Austen renaissance, I didn't try and do it when I was exhausted at midnight after everyone was in bed. I pulled out those Colin Firth DVDs and we watched them right in the middle of the day, and we didn't do other stuff for homeschool during those hours because I needed to see them. Do you know what that did? My daughter Johanna became an avid Jane Austen fan. Here are all the ways Jane Austen changed Johanna's life. First, she read the books. Second, she asked me to read her one of the books. It became our nighttime bedtime routine for me to read to her. Next, she wrote a novella based on Emma set in the Civil War, copied the idea, and took it and put it in the historical period we were studying in homeschool, all on her own. This was not assigned. And finally, she decided that she wanted to be a part of a vintage dance ball. So we found a community here in Cincinnati for adults. We bartered her tuition because I had no money. We distributed flyers in the rain and the snow all over a neighborhood to raise awareness that this group existed. And then the adult women in this group loaned her a Belle of the Ball style vintage dance dress, and she got to attend the ball with her brother Noah when she was like 12 years old. And that was our Jane Austen experience. Not because it was on my homeschool schedule, but because I became riveted by Jane Austen. And here's what's so funny. I never read Jane Austen in high school or college. Not once. No one ever assigned it. I was not an English major. So Jane Austen was secretly waiting for me in my 30s like a treasure chest that I had never unpacked. So I have not one bitter feeling about Jane Austen. I have no English teacher theories to work through. All I experienced was pure adult delight. You don't have to teach everything to your kids before they turn 18. Please leave them some fun things to discover as adults, just like what's happening to you right now. So let me sum this up this way. You're getting a great education while you educate your children. Enjoy it, don't feel guilty about it, and don't require your children to be fascinated by the things that fascinate you. Because you get to learn them even if your kids aren't interested. Find friends to talk to about this stuff, and you are going to get a side benefit you can't even detect right now. And that is that some of your interests are going to catalyze that interest in your child or your children, or They are simply going to see an active, engaged, happy, learning mother, and you'll be in touch with the properties of learning in a much more personal, valuable way that will help your homeschool. Okay? So, happy Thursday. I almost said Wednesday. Happy Thursday. I will be back here tomorrow morning, but earlier. And that's because I run on Fridays with my good buddy Patrice, and I have to be at her house by 8 in the morning. So I will be on this Facebook Live and Periscope bright and early, before 7. And I won't be able to stay on as long because I've got to get in the car and go run. Okay? So keep talking. I will see all of your comments here on Facebook, and we will keep the conversation going. If I could end with one thing, it's this. Those of you who have my book already, if you would go to Amazon.com and leave a review, that really helps us. It helps us get the word out, and I would appreciate it if you would. Otherwise, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.